The UN's nuclear watchdog on Thursday said that Iran is not complying with its nuclear obligations. The International Atomic Energy Agency is now demanding that Iran provide information without delay about uranium traces that were found at locations which Iran has not declared as nuclear sites. Iran has rejected the agency's demand, and it's also announced plans for a new underground enrichment facility, and it is upgrading centrifuges for enriching uranium. U.S.-Iran nuclear talks are set to resume in Oman this weekend. Tensions are high. U.S. President Trump has warned that a military strike by the U.S. or Israel remains on the table if diplomacy fails. American personnel are already being repositioned, and security measures have tightened across the Middle East. On Thursday, Iran's president said his country will rebuild any of its nuclear sites if they are attacked by the U.S. or Israel.
We'll continue on our path. We will have enrichment. We'll build the country with our young people. And if they destroy our facilities with bombs, it's not like everything is gone. These capabilities are in our minds. Whatever they do, we will rebuild.
Well, joining me now is Behnam Ben Taleblu. He's Senior Director of the Iran Program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. It's good to have you back on the program. This is the first formal censure of Iran by the IAEA board in 20 years. Tehran's immediate retaliatory steps, they feel almost rehearsed. How much of this is posturing? How much signals a real shift towards a confrontation?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. Indeed, you're correct that the Islamic Republic was ready for this. You saw it in the regime's rhetoric towards the Europeans. You saw it with some of the moves made with respect to advanced centrifuges over the past few months. And you've seen it with respect to this inauguration of a new enrichment facility that those who have focused on satellite imagery have been warning about potentially for 2 years now. So the regime is ready for more increased Western diplomatic and economic pressure. And based on the president's comments just recently that you played, they're trying to downplay the impact of any potential military action.
Is Tehran betting that the West will not risk another war in the Middle East? Is it in danger of miscalculating how far the Trump administration is prepared to go?
I certainly think the regime in Tehran is miscalculating when it comes to President Trump. You know, President Trump was someone who was willing to pull the trigger against Qasem Soleimani, Iran's chief terrorist, back in January 2020, when two previous, one Democrat, one Republican administration, thinking much more conventionally, were unwilling to do so. And while it's certainly clear that the president has been seeking a deal and wants a diplomatic resolution to the Iranian nuclear crisis, I think the regime thinks that if they can string him along and rope-a-dope him back into the same deal that he left, which was the 2015 deal that he left in 2018, moves like we saw yesterday to actually clear the region, clear parts of the region, I should say, of diplomatic facilities and send families home, could be the Trump administration's way of signaling in a costly fashion that Tehran is mistaken.
Israel has long telegraphed its willingness to act alone against Iranian nuclear facilities. I mean, with this censure coming from the IAEA, is it more likely that Israel will now coordinate with Washington, or do you think it could act on its own?
To be brutally honest, I think much of the commentary that frames Israel as acting alone or trying to surprise an administration misunderstands the logic of how such an operation would be carried out. I think to any military passerby, you would note that the Americans would have to play a role in making sure the skies were cleared, or Americans would at least get some kind of heads-up warning about Israelis moving planes. This is precisely how you actually get to stories like the NBC story that was revealed yesterday that said, based on 5 sources, the Israelis were readying something. So the U.S. is watching the large swaths of the region, both friend and foe alike, and processing it and formulating its policies accordingly. But nonetheless, I think based on 2024, which was a historic year in the Israel-Iran rivalry, given the direct Iranian missile attacks and the direct Israeli responses, anything is possible. And particularly in a post-October 7 Middle East, where the Israelis are much less keen to let threats fester and working to solve them rather than just manage the chaos around them, the military option is indeed real and is on the table.
Yesterday, the U.S. president was on a podcast, and he was very pessimistic about a deal with Tehran. Today, he urged Israel not to act because he said a deal with Iran is very close. How are we to read? These are conflicting signals, aren't they?
I think they're conflicting signals, but they're, signals in part of a much larger trend line, which is the president is looking to get a deal. And as he's looking to get a deal, both talks with Tehran as well as increased chances of an Israeli military operation, as well as increased chances of an American military operation can actually help him build leverage towards that deal. This is something of a countercultural thought experiment, but just think for a second here. There may be a world in which the president, who based on a New York Times story from April, casually waved off strikes from the Israelis on Iran, casually waves them back on once negotiations hit an impasse. And oh, look, right now, there have been actually 5 rounds of direct or indirect U.S.-Iran negotiations. Who knows what may come of the 6th round? But if enrichment continues to be this long-held sticking point, perhaps the president may look to have the Israelis use military force to help bolster and broker the chances of a diplomatic agreement.
Given the geography of Iran's enrichment sites, deep underground, well defended, what kind of military strike are we talking about here? I'm wondering, does Israel have the capability to act alone and to achieve the results that it wants?
As you and your viewers may know, Israel does not have the sorts of heavy bombers as well as the heavier, it does have heavy bunker busters, but not the heavier bunker busters needed to penetrate the 60 to 90 meters minimum of some of the hardened subterranean nuclear facilities. Israel can, with ease, as we saw in October, destroy any above ground missile, military, or nuclear facility. But what we've seen from the Israelis when it comes to counterproliferation operations, regular military warfighting, or even intelligence operations across the Middle East, they really have a capability, an ingenuity, and an innovation that helps them outpace and outperform quantitatively superior adversaries. So, the Islamic Republic fights when their strength in numbers or often via proxy, but the Israelis have often shown against all of their adversaries, state or non-state actors, that there is a significant surprise element. We saw this vis-a-vis their ability to strike using air-launched ballistic missiles from outside of Iranian territory against nearly all of the Islamic Republic's long-range air defenses back in October. And lest we forget, in September of 2024, the beeper and the other walkie-talkie intelligence operations that the Israelis had triggered, and then culminated in the killing of the chief leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah.
Ben Taleblu, we appreciate your time and your insights tonight. Good to have you back on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
For more now on tensions in the Middle East and the potential of escalation, I'm joined by Eylon Levy. He is a former Israeli government spokesperson. Mr. Levy, it's good to have you with us. The United States is getting its people out of harm's way. Is an attack on Iran by Israel now just a matter of time?
That is anyone's guess. Israel is hoping that diplomacy will succeed to prevent Iran from gaining nuclear weapons capability. But Israel is preparing for the worst. It's done it twice before. In 1981, Israel destroyed Saddam Hussein's nuclear reactor. In 2007, it destroyed Bashar al-Assad's nuclear reactor. And I think the whole world is happy now that Saddam Hussein and Bashar al-Assad don't have nuclear weapons. So Israel is hoping diplomacy will succeed. It's saying in response to the IAEA declaration that Iran is in non-compliance, we need urgent international pressure on Iran right now, but preparing for the worst. Because for Israel, war with Iran would be bad, but a nuclear Iran would be existential. And that would be the worst possible option.
If we look at the geopolitical situation right now, Hezbollah appears to be weaker than ever. It's presumed that Israel has killed Hamas's leader, Mohammed Sinwar. The window of opportunity for Israel to focus on striking Iran, it's wide open now, isn't it?
Exactly. The Iranian regime had surrounded Israel with a ring of fire of proxy armies. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, all armed to the teeth in order to prevent any Israeli attack on the nuclear facilities, allow Iran to go nuclear, and then allow it to use those proxy armies to destroy the state of Israel. Hamas miscalculated with the October 7th war. It is a shadow of its former self. Israel has totally thumped Hezbollah. The Assad regime has been knocked out of action. And Israel has also destroyed many of Iran's air defenses in retaliation for previous ballistic missile strikes against Israel. So Israeli planners will be looking at Iran and saying it's 2-week breakout time away from nuclear weapons. It already has enough 60% highly enriched uranium for 10 nuclear bombs. It's weaker than it's ever been. And if diplomacy fails, then it's really now or never.
Well, the U.S. president today said that he had asked Prime Minister Netanyahu not to attack Iran because he said a nuclear deal with Iran, he said, we are close to a deal. Would Israel launch an attack without the blessings of the U.S.?
Well, I would hope that Israel and the US are playing a good cop, bad cop routine, because the only leverage the United States has now to get Iran into a nuclear deal is the threat of military action. It's the only bullet in the barrel. Everyone wants to see a deal. The question is, what deal? Israel and the United States are both demanding the dismantlement of Iran's nuclear facilities. It cannot retain an ability to enrich its own uranium because it can use that in order to build nuclear weapons. It wants a deal like Libya, where Libya's nuclear program was dismantled. But Iran's red line is it wants to continue enriching uranium even as the IAEA shows it's in non-compliance not only with the JCPOA, but with the NPT as well. So at the moment, it doesn't look like there's any possible overlap between the US and Iran, and one can only hope that given the threat of possible military action, Iran will blink and agree to dissolve its nuclear program.
Well, let's say that Iran does not blink. Would an attack take out Iran's nuclear capability, or would it just slow it down, as has been the case in the past?
If Israel's back were against the wall and diplomacy fails and it were forced to launch an attack on Iran's illegal nuclear facilities, with or without American support, it could certainly deliver very significant harm to the Iranian nuclear program. Would it destroy it completely? Probably not, considering Iran has secret facilities deep, deep, deep underground. And as far as I know, only the United States has those bunker busters. But Israel would certainly be able to massively disrupt the Iranian nuclear weapons program and mean that they're no longer just 2-week breakout time from nuclear weapons, which is where they are now, given the failure of international diplomacy over the past few decades.
Well, I'll ask you before we run out of time. Prime Minister Netanyahu's critics claim that he has kept the war in Gaza going to avoid his own criminal prosecution. What do you say to those who say that an attack on Iran would just be the latest distraction for him?
I don't think that's fair criticism with regards to Gaza. After the October 7th massacre, Israel set out 2 goals: to bring down Hamas so it can never launch another October 7th massacre, and to bring back the hostages. And if there were a quicker way to dismantle Hamas and remove it from power, Israel would have done that already. As for Iran, Israel has been warning for decades about the threat of a nuclear Iran. And here we are with diplomacy perhaps about to fail, with the possibility for snapback sanctions under the JCPOA about to expire, and with Iran at its weakest position. So any Israeli leader now, given Iran's weakness, given how close it is to nuclear weapons, given the possible failure of diplomacy, would be facing the same historic decision. Do we take action to prevent a hostile regime that chants death to Israel and wants to destroy Israel? Do we prevent it the ability to destroy Israel?
Former Israeli government spokesperson Eylon Levy. Mr. Levy, we appreciate your time and your insights tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.